Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Mental Matters. My name is Andy Bernstein, your host for The Most, and this is a show dedicated each week to talking about the issues of mental health, addiction, and all around things going out there, everything to do around wellness and mental health. I double repeated that. Joining me, as always, is my friend and colleague, the great Willie Drinkwater. Willie, who are you?
Sort of an existential question to start things off, huh? I am a LADC1, which is a licensed alcohol drug counselor with the right to private practice in the Commonwealth. I have a practice up in Beverly, although most of it these days is by telehealth, which I got into during the pandemic time and such. And I'm an educator for UMass Boston in the Addiction Counseling Education Program, and I go out nationally to lecture on addiction with co-occurring disorders.
All right, and we have a special guest today. Her name is Rebecca Davis, the great Rebecca Davis. We'll get to her in a second, but let's talk about what's going on out there in the world of mental health and addiction from your perspective as a provider.
Yeah, I think I was mentioning it last week too, as I'm seeing a real increase in the number of people coming forward to get treatment for alcohol issues. And it goes back to the pandemic when people were locked down in their houses and, they were social drinkers maybe at the beginning of the pandemic. And then all of a sudden during the pandemic, it was okay to have a cocktail in the morning while you were showering, for getting ready for the day. If you did shower, because people would go days on end and
we did it in college. We did it in college.
Well, yeah.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So I'm seeing a lot more alcohol issues. We're always talking about the opioid epidemic and stuff, and it is still there. But what people tend to, people fail to realize is that alcohol actually takes out more people nationally than opiates do. But because it's legal and societal factors, people don't really talk about it much. We've got an issue down the Cape where you have the retirees down the Cape with major addiction issues too. You retire, you move down the Cape. There's only like 3 or 4 months of action down the Cape, and it's pretty desolate in the wintertime and stuff. And you're down there and you lose your partner of 30 or 40 years, and you're by yourself, and it's a real setup. It's a real setup with the isolation to begin to go overboard.
We know all about it, right? Everybody knows that there's a problem, right? But how do you work in the solution here? And you've obviously you're a professor as well as a clinician or a provider. But from your perspective, one of the things that you really focus in on, and we've talked about this before, but I think it's important to bring back up, is your vision of or the diagnosis of co-occurring disorders. Can you speak to that and how important it is to understand that to address addiction and mental health?
Yeah. I mean, it's taken years to try to start to have a breakthrough. There was always, a split, a split in the camps, in mental health. You had, addiction was on one side and psych was on the other side. Although addiction is part of psych, oftentimes that's overlooked. It's treated separately, but. I remember when I began in the field, you would hear people well-intentioned, but they say things like, "Oh, you got other issues? Well, don't worry about those until you get 6 months clean." And it's like, yeah, but if you have trauma issues where you're getting flashbacks, and all of a sudden now you're not self-medicating flashbacks away or down. Good luck trying to get to 6 months sober. So we know now that integrated treatment is the way to go. Meaning that. You have the ideal thing is you have one team that's treating both mental health and the addiction issues at the same time. Usually in Massachusetts, though, what you end up with is parallel treatment. You go into one provider for mental health issues, and then you go into another provider for your addiction issues. And the thing I always emphasize there is that you make sure that you sign what's referred to as ROIs, releases of information. You have your mental health, you sign a release with your mental health team to talk with your addiction team, and your addiction team releases to talk to your mental health team. Then you might have to take it one step further. You might actually want to say to your addiction team, what are good days and times for my therapist to give you a call, to discuss my case for continuity of care. And I mean, years ago, SAMHSA had a program where they were giving grants for states to be able to integrate their mental health and their addiction services. For instance, with Connecticut State, they picked up a SAMHSA grant, and they've seen nothing but major benefit from having their treatment integrated. Massachusetts is a little tough. You have DPH is treating the addiction issues. You have DMH that's treating the mental health issues. Each of them is like a little fiefdom that doesn't want to share their budget, with each other. And, it all comes down to, who gets the most money then, addiction or mental health? Well, it all depends on, who is lobbying the hardest at the State House, and stuff.
I have two thoughts on that, and one is it's kind of like building a house. The architect and the designer should be working together to put the best house together, because the left hand and the right hand know what each are doing to get you the best care. Now, will a doctor, if you ask the doctor to say, your addiction counselor or your mental health provider, I want to talk to, I want to loop in my mental health provider, how would they respond to that? How does that?
Yeah. I mean, it all depends on the, it all depends on the providers. I know, like, in the forefront for quite a few years now, and I'm not throwing it out there to garner any revenue, but Massachusetts General Brigham, I mean, up on the North Shore here, there's North Shore physicians groups, which are part of MGB, and what they do, if you have a primary care physician that's going to prescribe anything psychoactive, they have a social worker in the office that immediately is trying to hook up that patient with a therapist. I'm not a big fan of primary care physicians prescribing anything that's psychoactive, and I mentioned that to you in the past, because they don't have the training. I mean, the average person that goes through 4 years of medical school, they were offered maybe 120-hour course on mental health and addiction, and it's an elective. They don't even have to take it. Although I know there are some medical schools now, like Harvard Medical School, that they're required to take a course on opiate addiction, but that's it. That's the only requirement that they have as far as addiction goes, is a course on opiates. So it leaves a lot to be desired.
I know that's for the AD, and I want to mention something else, but I know for having ADD, I had to get Adderall, and there is a national Adderall shortage. You can't get Adderall. You have to call around pharmacy after pharmacy to find Adderall. Why is there an Adderall shortage? Could it possibly be because you have physicians prescribing Adderall that shouldn't be prescribing Adderall, because maybe it's not the right medication? Or is it better to go psychopharma and have somebody prescribe it who, it's like,
it should always be by psychopharm. I mean, one of the things is insurance companies are trying to cut their costs. You see all these ads on TV for various psychoactive drugs, and they say, go to your doctor and ask about getting a prescription. Well, they don't want the primary care, if they can help it, to refer them to a specialist, meaning a psychiatrist or a nurse practitioner or clinical specialist, because that costs the insurance companies more. So they're more than happy to try to get the primary care to be the one that's dispensing the psychoactive drugs.
Well, like we said, like I was talking to you yesterday, they gave me an alternative medication. Horrible, right? They're not helpful whatsoever. I spoke up, and I told the woman who prescribes it, I was like, this doesn't work for me. Like, I'm not good at taking this. So she said, well,
which by the way, just so you know, Massachusetts is the #1 state for the abuse of Adderall.
Well, there you go. And you know what?
Do you know why? Do you know why?
Why?
Because of all the universities and colleges in the Boston area. It's the study drug. It's the final exam drug.
We're going to get to colleges in a second, okay? But I want to say, yesterday I was in the Boston Public Library. I've been there the last 2 weeks working on something, and there's a guy who's been in the bathroom who talks to himself. like straight up talks to himself. He had all this wiring that looked really sketchy. So last week I went up and I told the person at the front desk, I said, I got to tell you, there's a guy in the bathroom. I don't know if he's setting up a bomb or something, but it's pretty scary. And you say, see something, say something, right? So I did. Oh yeah, we know him, no problem, right? Yesterday, I saw him in the bathroom, staring in the mirror, talking about the white man, right? Having a full-on conversation with himself. Why is that guy walking the streets? Why hasn't anybody...
Oh, he's not. He's in the bathroom. He's not walking the streets. He's in the bathroom, right?
You know what I'm saying.
No, I do know what you're saying. I'm just being a smart butt.
Never, never. But seriously, why is that dude walking the streets? Like, wouldn't you think?
You can't commit somebody, if they're talking to themselves. You can't. It has to fall under the criteria of they're a threat to themselves or others. Somebody talking to themselves is not a threat to anybody else necessarily. You know?
We all be gone. We all talk to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Well,
now,
it's okay to talk to yourself. It's the amount of time you do it.
I'm just saying it was weird, right? It was weird, and I kind of got a little like, oh, there was a guy, he did something stupid because he was mentally ill, right? Yeah. Clearly he was literally getting angry while he was talking in the mirror about the white man, right? Because I was in there, and anyway.
You're a white man.
All right, we're going to move on.
We're going to meet. This was in the men's bathroom at the library, and he was in there for how long talking to himself in the mirror?
I don't know. But it was
a while.
I had to get out of there. I got out.
Well, you were upset. You were upset because you wanted the mirror, right?
I did want the mirror. All right, let's meet our guest today. We talked about, let me preface this. We talked about colleges and universities. You're a professor, and you're teaching a course. Let's talk about the course.
Yeah, the course is Addiction and Co-occurring Disorders. And, one of the interesting things, and Rebecca can probably talk about it too, is that the course that I teach isn't a required course. It's an elective course. And you would think that, addiction and co-occurring disorders would be a required course, as opposed to, it's taken a long time, but we're finally starting to get away from that line of go to a meeting, get a sponsor, join an AWOL group, and your life will be happy, joyous, and free. If you have other mental health issues going on, they need to be addressed too. Yeah, can 12-step be an intricate part for many, many people? Yes, of course it can. But if you have other mental health issues going on, good luck trying to stay sober if you're not addressing those other issues.
So as far as class and things, there's a lot of opportunities and with that class. And we're going to hear from Rebecca. Let's get Rebecca to introduce herself. Rebecca, who are you?
Hi, I am Rebecca Davis, and I took the addiction counselor education program. It was, I think, almost 2 years now it ended, and it was through UMass Boston, and it was 6 months of, it was at Willie, every 6 weeks you take different courses. Yeah. And when I met Willie, of course, and I became his favorite student, and he became my favorite professor, and it was the best learning experience I've had from a professor. Because Willie just brought real life into the classroom and not like just showed videos or it was a pre-recorded lecture. I mean, he really puts his heart and soul into teaching this class. And when he talks about co-occurring disorders and bipolar, I mean, anybody that has an underlying condition that goes out and does drugs or drinks heavily, is the anxiety making me worse because I'm drinking, or does the drinking make me have anxiety, or is medication making me talk to myself, and if you're talking to yourself and then you're going to go drink, that might calm that talking to yourself. There's so much that's going on mentally that in order, Willie really puts it into perspective that, co-occurring disorders do count. And honestly, like if you sent a patient, say, to a mental hospital that takes both, obviously mental hospitals would take both co-occurring and people with just alcohol or drug issues. The screening process really needs to be what's looked at, because if you have, you know, a floor of 35 men and women, and say 20 of them are in there because they're addicted to drugs, street drugs or cocaine or alcohol or any of those things, and then the other ones are in there because they're alcoholic as well, but they also see people and talk to people, and so they're drinking more, so they're not, so those people are freaking out, like you're saying, the guy in the mirror. So there's that person in your wing, you're in there for alcohol or drug treatment, but they do it as mental people. It makes the people that are detoxing might on edge, and then people start fighting and screaming because people just aren't screening away, like you're saying. Should this guy be able to walk the streets or walk the bathroom in the library? I mean, they have to be able to separate the mental health with the alcohol and the drugs to decide what your diagnosis is.
Yeah.
And it's co-occurring. So I think people drink because they have anxiety, and then they have anxiety because they drink, or it's a very difficult thing, especially I think with COVID. And then they began they began delivering alcohol.
One of the things I always emphasize too is taking as complete a history as you can, really getting a patient's complete story. And the other thing too, when you come out of the detox, there's always going to be depression and anxiety. It's a matter of degree. That doesn't mean that you have to put everyone on an antidepressant and an anti-anxiety medication, because it's going to take the brain, a couple of months to readjust, to not having those other drugs or alcohol in the system, but we have this tendency to just, Rebecca knows from being in the field too, gabapentin, off-label use for anxiety, often referred to as Johnnies out on the street, because, there's that term, and Andy has heard me use the term before, Southeast sober, where you're taking gabapentin with Red Bull and you're getting a buzz off it, so, I mean, not everybody needs to go right onto an anti-anxiety med or an antidepressant when they're coming out of the detox. But you get a lot of people on the day of the discharge, they're like, where's my script for gabapentin? It's like, there's an entitlement about it. It's like, well, yeah, everyone gets gabapentin when they come out of the detox, right? It's even in the case of MAT, medication-assisted treatment. You have Suboxone, naltrexone. You've got all of these MAT, which, I believe they definitely have their place and stuff, but I have yet to see a program that does a group on the different types of MAT and the pros and cons of each of them. Now we're finally starting to get into the longitudinal studies about Suboxone. It's affecting bone density, number one, and number two, it flattens people's affects, how they facially express themselves. They could be happy and you never know it because they've just got a blank affect.
Sorry to cut you off. I want to go back to last week. We talked about the woman who I know that jumped in front of the train, the Metro North train, in Connecticut, and she killed herself. And she had schizophrenia, and it was diagnosed as schizophrenia. She didn't take. She was married. Or not married, she had a daughter. She had a 13-year-old daughter. She had a good job. She had a boyfriend. And everybody who knew her was, she was the sweetest thing on the planet, right? But she was schizophrenia. She had schizophrenia. How, we go back to talking about the guy in the bathroom, staring in the bathroom. This woman had signs. Right, there were signs. She had been hospitalized before for schizophrenia.
That's a tough one. There was a case years ago, Andy, that I knew about and stuff too, where a woman had came out of one of the top mental health facilities in the United States, which happens to be in Massachusetts, and she was cleared to go by bipolar disorder. And you may have heard about this in the news years ago, but she went home and she took her nephew and her niece and she went out onto Route 93, and she stopped her car, and she picked up her nephew and niece who were young, and she went out. She started walking across Route 93 during the commuter rush hour in the evening, because the angels had told her they were going to heaven, and she took her niece and her nephew, and all three of them were killed on 93. And you would say, well, didn't the hospital have a heads up on that? And it's like, well, I mean, there's only so much, if somebody says they're not suicidal, they're not homicidal, and and they're back in a state of balance, and they're back on their meds, like in the case of this woman with schizophrenia, how do you prevent it? I mean, there's a lot of times that you're just not going to be able to.
Well, they're going to
and
have
somebody who's truly suicidal usually doesn't let you know at all.
right. Well, she doesn't drink.
They
She
don't let
wasn't
you
a
know.
drinker, and I don't know, she wasn't a drinker, but what's messed up about it, and this kind of goes along, is that they're going to have a celebration of life for her a month later, right? And I'm like, this shouldn't be a celebration of life at this point. To me, I think there's a teachable moment here to
Well, it can be both then, right? It can be both.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So, because it's not. I guess my point is, it's not just drug this stuff isn't just drug induced, right? These
No, it can be straight up mental health.
right, as a co-occurring disorder. Now, Rebecca, what made you get into this course and take Willie's course in the first place? What was your motivation for participating?
Well, I have had struggles in the past, and a sibling that also had struggles in the past for years and years. I actually had his obituary written up. So we both actually had bad backs, and that's what started. Was he had a back issue, but his was fixed. Mine's not fixed. I don't think it's fixable. I've had 4 back surgeries, so that was in 7.5 years ago. I stopped taking pain medication, and I was just so into just sharing my story and just giving people that pep talk that you are worth it, that you can do this. So I took the Human Services Certification Program and the Substance Addiction Program at Quincy College, along with my associates over there, and then the Recovery Coach Program. And I'm a licensed phlebotomist and CPR, and I'm getting certified to be a DOT drum, so drugs of abuse, a drug collector. And also another position that I'm getting is the woman I work for and have worked for in the past, Denise Valenti. And she has goggles that she has invented and created for the detection of marijuana.
Really?
People driving. Yes, she is great. And she actually initially she invented these goggles for dementia patients, and then she figured out that you could use them on a patient and detect whether or not they were under the influence of marijuana. And she just got the grant that she needed she's been trying to get another grant for a few years, and she's a pusher and pusher and pusher. And I can share her website with you guys too.
Please.
So she's actually people that are I think it's like 21 to 35 years old. You go in for 2 visits. You go in once sober, and we do I would draw blood on the phlebotomist, and then the eye test and all that. And then you come back the second time, but you have to, smoke your marijuana outside the building. And then you come in, and she does the test again, and I draw the blood. She gives them a huge goodie bag with Fritos and stuff. It's $150 a visit, so there's 2 visits that she's going to pay for, and then she'll pay you for your Uber ride or a taxi cab, so that you're not driving while intoxicated. so with that we can get this going. And I think she has 60 to 80 subjects, so she wants me to do also a marketing aspect of it, mostly at college campuses, because that's where I think a lot of it is. And it will be a flyer with like phone numbers on the bottom where you pull the phone number off.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's if somebody wants to make, for $150 for nothing, getting a ride to go in, if they happen to, smoke pot. But she doesn't provide the marijuana or anything, but she's really for getting these people are driving under the influence of marijuana, and it's really not much different than drinking under the influence of alcohol on legal terms. Legally, you can't drink and drive, and you're not supposed to smoke marijuana and drive, whether you have a legal card or not. I mean, it's still under.
Yeah, I mean, there's only
so
That's amazing.
there's
So
only
go ahead.
yeah go.
So
No,
the
I was
prob-
just gonna sit. I was just gonna say there's only one country I know of where the BAL for driving is 0.00, and that's Sweden. Sweden's the only country where if you have any alcohol in your system, you can't get behind the wheel. That's, which of course their public transit is a little different than the T here in Boston. It actually functions extremely well, and when people go to parties at a friend's house on the, a Friday night or the weekend, it's just expected that they're sleeping over. It's just part of the culture. If you're going to somebody's home to drink, and party, then you're staying over that night.
I want to go back to the goggles. Can we go back to the goggles?
Yeah.
Okay, the
Yeah,
goggles.
yeah.
Tell me, okay, so what the goggles are to detect whether you're using marijuana or not.
Right. Yes, because it's when I went, I looked in the goggles, and she had two police officers there as well that were doing field sobriety tests. Like, she's like, don't be scared. Like, this isn't a test. You're not going to get arrested. So, and I went in the room to do the field sobriety test. Just watch the police do it, and I thought they all passed with flying colors, and all of them failed. And in those goggles, it's like the way you see the lines go and the way that they're supposed to really and truly be, as opposed to when you smoke marijuana, you see it completely differently, which definitely proves that you are under the influence. The name of her name is Denise Valente, and it's IMMAD. That's the name of her company in Quincy, IMMAD. And I met her through my professor of criminal justice from Quincy College. He referred me to her because she was doing a study on marijuana and detecting it while impaired behind the wheel. So I'm a phlebotomist, so I went and I did some blood work.
I love this. Here's the problem, right? Here's my question.
Good. Do you see it?
It could be a $1 billion concept.
It took her a lot. Yeah, it took her a lot. She's been fighting for grants for a while. I give her so much credit. She won't give up.
And here's the problem, though. And you tell me. I worked at a hospital. Every day, this dude came in and smelled of weed early in the morning. I'm like, well, why don't I come in smelling like cigar smoke, right? Because my question is, if it's legal, is it considered I was out drinking all night and I'm coming in and smelling like alcohol? Or am I smoking cigarettes and I'm smelling like cigarettes as just a version? Where's the lines, right? Is it okay to come in smelling like weed if it's legal, right? How can a company say we have a marijuana policy if it's legal? So I don't understand how, I could see a corporation, can they fire you because they know you're using marijuana? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know either. I mean, I think that, how they say it can stay in your system for way longer than, for a long time. I think there's going to be a way to figure out, like, did you smoke this morning or did you smoke, last weekend with your buddies? There's a difference. I'm not sure what that is yet, but she's going to be up. I was just going to read her emails because she is starting this month, so she wants me to try to get people to come in and confirm her study. But I do think that you're positive or not. It's like, well, when were you under the influence? You know?
Yeah, well, if you're going into work in the morning and you're smelling like weed, even if you smoked it the night before, then I don't think you appropriately got ready for work. You obviously didn't brush your teeth, you know. So I mean, if you're coming in the morning and you're still smelling of cannabis, yeah, I think you're still in party mode. I don't know,
I
you know,
can't
or
stand it.
I mean, it smells all the time now, all the time. You can't go anywhere and not smell cannabis.
I can't
Ever since it's
stand it. Right? I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah.
And it's not because it smells horrible. And it's like, I feel like the entire world is high. Every day, I feel
I
like
know.
everybody's high.
Everyone's smoking. Smoke
well, I'm getting
everywhere.
from a clinical perspective, I'm getting more and more people. You know, I'm seeing more and more people that have had a cannabis psychosis happen because you know it's legal. So you start smoking it around the clock, and the next thing you know, you're in the bathroom talking to yourself in the mirror. You know, it's one of those deals. It really is. And you know, I get the high school kids all the time. You know, high school age will say, "Well, you know, it's legal." It's like, yeah, but not for you. You're not 21, and the human brain develops till age 25. And the stuff out there now is 100 to 500 times stronger than the stuff we had back in the 70s, as far as the strength goes. So
Yeah,
you know,
the vape pens are THC are 90%, and
Yeah.
regular marijuana is like 20% THC. But the
Yeah.
vape pens they're smoking 90% THC. Take a few hits of that. I mean,
yeah, and I mean,
myself from that.
yeah, and I mean the thing with the psychosis
It's a
that
lot.
can happen, you know, with the psychosis that can happen is, you know, sometimes people come back, and sometimes they don't. They stay in the psychosis. So you know,
Yeah.
so
Really,
when
it's
you,
dangerous.
I was just reading about Pete Davidson, right? Because I don't understand the whole Pete Davidson, like why he's funny. Like I don't, right? Maybe because I'm old, but you know who I'm talking about. Pete
older.
older. He quit drugs, but he still smokes weed. I'm like, doesn't that sound off? Like,
Sounds like California sober, right?
yeah.
Right.
It's like, oh,
I don't do
just
drugs.
smoke.
I just do weed. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, they claim, right, that like that marijuana now, well, you call it this, I don't know. They say that it works for anxiety. It works for this. People go off their benzos. People go off their opiates. People go off all of their stuff. And, you know, mostly elderly people tend to, you know, get it and smoke it, and it helps them with the eating and being able to move and sleep. Do you see a difference in your clientele? Like,
Yeah, what I'm seeing, you know, I have clients now that'll quote use marijuana for anxiety, and you know, one of the things we're always watching for is if they need an increasing amount in order to put the anxiety down. Well, that's one of the tenets of addiction is needing an increasing amount in order to get in order to get a desired effect. And then the other thing is if they have a day where for whatever reason they're feeling anxious, they can't get their hands on marijuana, then they end up with more anxiety than the reason they were smoking it in the first place. Rebound anxiety.
I got news
Yeah.
for you.
True.
When Adderall, and I couldn't get my Adderall, it pissed me off because I'm like, you stopped and you didn't tell me that the Adderall was not going to be able to be reordered, right? You didn't have a note on a bag to say, you know, this is your last order of Adderall. Because we don't know when it's coming back in, right? They don't tell you. So now I took this medicine. Now all of a sudden you're stopping me, and you don't even tell me you're stopping me. You don't have any, right? You can't fill it. So it creates like you just pulled medicine away from me. Suddenly I feel totally different than I did when I was taking my ADD meds, right? So now I'm annoyed, right? So I'm starting to feel like I'm an addict because I'm trying to take my ADD meds and you're not giving it to me. How many people felt like that? That wasn't right to do that. Is it?
I heard it was that there was some sort of prescription going around the internet. There was a fake doctor and a fake prescription, and it just that's where all the Adderall went.
Really?
And this is what I heard. I don't know if it's true or not. My friend did tell me this, that's exactly why it was so short. And because all these people had prescriptions that they ordered online through an online doctor, supposedly all around the world. So they figured it out and they're cutting it down and finding out.
Maybe trying to jack the price up on it too. Who knows?
Yeah, probably. And
Yeah.
so that's why it's back. It's back, I believe. 'Cause
Somewhat.
They whoever was falsifying, online prescriptions, which is, I don't know, pretty brave. That's something I would I'd be petrified doing.
Sounds like the dark web.
So
Yes. But
so-
I know a lot of people were going crazy. Like no one had the Adderall, and if they did, the mom and pop pharmacies would only give it to their patients. Like say, like Willie, they wouldn't let him. If he
Regular
wanted to
patient.
call,
Yeah. Yeah.
hey,
I wouldn't let him walk
yeah.
in anywhere I was in.
Well, I know. I mean, I know. Years
only
ago
serve
with
their people. Sorry.
I know years ago with the Adderall, you could go to your health center on your college campus and you could end up you'd Google the signs and symptoms of ADD or ADHD, and then you go into the health center and you'd spew out what you just read a half an hour ago, and they'd give you a script. And then it got to the point where colleges and universities say, oh yeah, those are the signs and symptoms. You're going to have to go through your own family doctor to get the prescription. We're no longer doing scripts at the health center here.
Would you
Or-
guys both
or
say
Adderall.
it sounds like they're really just trying to figure it out? Everybody's just trying to figure this whole thing out, kind of like walking blind. Like nobody really has an answer to any of this. Would you say that?
I haven't been hearing one, but
What about you, Rebecca? Do you feel like there's no it's such a big problem and it's such a daunting problem, like it doesn't seem like anybody has answers. They'll say, oh well, we're going to give money towards this and the government's going to give money towards this, and opioid addiction was the cause du jour and everybody was behind it, and now it fell off the radar screen, and now it's now we're going to talk about fentanyl. And then fentanyl is the new thing, which I want to hear from you guys about fentanyl. But doesn't it seem like we're all over the place? Would you agree?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote a few papers. I did. I wrote a few papers in school. I'm not currently taking classes, but I have a few left to get my bachelor's in psychology. So I wrote a few papers on that. It's just like one drug is going to one drug from another drug to another drug, and the way that they say that it's not addictive, and then it's just the big pharma thing drives me crazy. But even still, is it better? I mean, there are people that need pain medication, period. So I know they were trying to get rid of it, the Alcohol Prohibition Act.
Right.
We're trying to get rid of it altogether.
Right.
But you still have people that are in serious pain all day, every day,
Sure.
because they have real issues. So I don't know does fentanyl. I mean, I didn't even know fentanyl came in a pill form. I mean, I feel stupid, but it's isn't that almost like the Michael Jackson drug, or that's the drug they give you before you're going into surgery to make you, calm,
just
chill?
sedation.
Is it problem
Yeah.
solved?
sedation.
Are they saying for opioids? Because here's an article I just found. Use of opioid addiction treatment in U.S. hasn't risen. So is this problem solved with opioid addiction?
No. Mayor
You're
Wu
looking at
and all the. I'm sorry, go ahead, Willie.
I was going to say, not if you look at the overdose death rate, it isn't solved.
Right, but it's
Right.
it's gone off the agenda, and now it's talking about fentanyl. So talk about fentanyl, and let's talk about this other drug in a time with I can't even say the name, but I'll let you say the name. Xylazine.
Xylazine.
All right, talk to me
No,
about. Let's talk
Yeah.
about fentanyl, and let's talk about.
Oh, is this the new drug?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Trank. Trank, it's called too on the street.
Oh.
It's a non-opioid.
Is it a barbiturate or a benzo?
It's a tranquilizer. It's a non-opioid tranquilizer that's used by veterinarians. It's not even meant for human consumption, and it's
Oh,
finding its way into the fentanyl supply and stuff too, which is just, it was saying in this article here, like
is
from
it deadly
2000.
like the other?
Yeah, it's like a benzo from the standpoint, if you do anything else with it, it potentiates the effects. So, like if you drink on a benzo, it's like 1 + 1 is 5, like I taught in class.
Right.
There's that potentiation effect to it. Well, this has that same type of potentiation effect if you put anything else in the system on it and stuff. And yeah, I was saying what, 20 to 25 from 2015 to 2020. They were saying in Pennsylvania, the overdose deaths involving this drug, xylazine, increased from 2% to 26% in Pennsylvania. And they say xylazine was involved in 19% of all drug overdose deaths in Maryland in 2021 and 10% in Connecticut in 2020. So it's getting mixed into the supply, much like fentanyl now. I mean, you talk to anyone who's a coconut, which I say affectionately, anyone that does cocaine, fentanyl's making its way into the cocaine supply
What about
too.
pot?
I mean,
Weed.
yeah, if you don't get pot, if you don't get your pot directly from from a
Dispensary.
yeah, if you don't get it from a dispensary, you don't know what you're getting.
Talk
Unless it's your
about
buddy down the street that's growing it in his backyard, and you can trust him. But
people
if you
say.
just
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. But
No.
people will say, and I've heard this. I don't understand. It's a foreign mentality to me, but you'll know. You guys will know more. But it sounds to me like when you take fentanyl, people who are addicted, seriously addicted, love the idea that you could get, that it's so potent that they'll seek that out.
No, what's an interesting story, Andy, is when I worked inpatient psych, which was 15 out of my 35 years in the field and stuff. If we had an inpatient inpatient psych who was being discharged, if they had a fentanyl patch, it used to be fentanyl was just in patches and stuff. And if they had a patch on, you would take it off before they left the unit. When I worked at Melrose Wakefield, I mean, we were up on the sixth. We were up on the 6th floor, which never made sense to me. You have people that are suicidal when you put them on the highest floor in the building, but that's another story. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You should put them in the basement. If they jump, they just jump up and they hit their heads. Why the 6th floor? But anyway, before that policy was in effect, you discharge somebody with that patch on, they get in the elevator, and when the elevator opened on the ground floor, they were passed out on the floor of the elevator because they took the patch off and it's a gel, and they'd eat the whole thing. And by the time they got to the first floor, they were overdosed. So I mean, that's the reason why you don't leave patches on people when they leave the hospital.
I
once
just read
you're off the hospital grounds, they're not liable. So
there are 300 deaths a day for fentanyl. Okay. And this is a national security issue because it's coming through China. It's manufactured.
It's coming from China. Yeah, most of it.
But
yeah,
the Mexican
almost
drug
all of it.
cartels are also selling it too. This is warfare, if you think about it. It's really chemical warfare in a sense. Tell me about the powers of fentanyl from your perspective. What does it do, and why is it such a death sentence for taking it?
Well, I mean, it's so concentrated. It's a synthetic opiate too. It's not natural like heroin is. I mean, I don't think I've heard anyone talk about bundles or bricks of heroin in years. How about you, Rebecca? Have you heard anybody talking about bundles or bricks? No,
No.
Heroin's gone. It's fentanyl now. It's cheaper.
So who's doing it, right? Where is it coming from? It comes from China, but where is it?
Right. Like who prescribes it?
Yeah.
How do you get it? Right. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
they used to prescribe fentanyl patches. I'm not sure if they do or not still, but it was.
How are these people getting a hold of pills that they don't make? Or
Well, yeah. I mean, I can go on Amazon now and buy myself a pill press, and I'm pressing fentanyl, and I'm telling people that it's oxys, and stuff, and then. Yeah.
Is the detox different than, like, are the detoxes filled with fentanyl? People using fentanyl? Is it?
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you do? What do you do? How do you
Well,
get?
we're always talking about the war on drugs, and stopping the supply. What if you educated the public where they were saying, I don't want to take this risk. It seems like it's not really a good drug. It's highly addictive. I mean, when I used to go on the high schools and stuff, I would tell the kids, I'm not here to tell you not to do drugs. Because you're going to hear that from me. Would I prefer? I would prefer if you don't do drugs. But the suggestion I'm going to make to you is that if you're thinking about doing a drug, go to arrowid.org, learn as much about it as you can, read the user stories, and then determine for yourself if you think that's a justifiable risk that you want to take.
So-
treating them like adults, you get a better response than saying don't do drugs.
I never did any. The only drug I ever did was smoke pot, and the last time I smoked pot was probably 2001 or 2002. Okay.
Yeah.
I never did cocaine. I never did any kind of drugs. I grew up in the 80s. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Fried egg, bacon.
Yep.
And that's what it was. And
Yeah.
I had a great relationship with my mother. I never wanted to disappoint my mother. And I never got caught up because she could call me out. She knew my mother was so attuned to my behavior. She paid so much attention to what I was doing. She always knew if I was lying about something. I can't tell a lie either, right? It's impossible. How important is family structure to this?
Yeah. I mean, Rebecca knows from my course and stuff too. When I'm working with anybody, you really got to go back to that family of origin, the family that they're reared in, because that's where you get your first sets of beliefs and values. I get people saying, "Well, what's normal, Willie?" It's like, well, I don't know what's normal for you. I only know what's normal for me. And instead of asking if something is normal, why don't you ask, is that healthy or unhealthy? Then we can come to a consensus about it. But a lot of times I work with people and we start talking about family of origin stuff, and they look back at their family and they go, wow, that was really not healthy. you know
What do you think, Rebecca?
It's just not healthy. I mean, people are, I don't know. I just think this world's going bananas, and people are just doing whatever they want. Even if you go out drinking and then you smoke pot, it can put you into that state of, the man talking to himself in the mirror. I mean, if you're drunk and you smoke weed or do any benzos, people are just I don't know. I think everyone's just trying to find the American dream, and it's how can we when people aren't making any more money, and eggs are $10 and everything's going up in price and no one's making any more money, and cost of living, we all know that, the car, housing, like I can't afford a house by myself. I think everyone is just trying to find out to let their brain be free and happy, because they're so stressed out all the time. They're working just to pay the bills. And then you have extra money to go on vacation or to go get, nails done or go get a nice dinner. I mean, you don't have any extra money anymore.
Stresses, constant stresses.
Yeah.
Do you feel weed is glamorized?
What's that?
Sorry?
Do you think marijuana is glamorized?
I think it is by the people selling it.
No, I'm talking about the media. Does the media glamorize marijuana to be attractive? Do you feel like I'll give you an example. Again, as kids, you would have McDonald's and you'd have, on Saturday morning cartoons, and you would have Grimace and you would have all the McDonald Land characters. So you grew up thinking, go to McDonald's, right? Is there any responsibility by the media at all? I'm just asking a question to say, what, you're glorifying, it's like glorifying cigarettes, right? Is it glorified that marijuana is you know, you know, should there be any kind of regulations? Because it seems like it's everywhere on TV. It's everywhere. It's in the hip hop culture. It's everywhere where marijuana is so prevalent. I mean, do you think that there's anything to that? The media kind of portraying that this is like a wonder drug of some point, or it's it's hip to smoke it. Does it have any, is there any responsibility?
I think they're trying to. I think it's as far as wonder drug. I mean, as far as from the standpoint of CBD, I think that's been sort of dramatized as the wonder drug, CBT for joint pain, for this, for that, for everything else. And I don't see a lot of empirical studies though. So
it's not.
I'm one.
Dosage.
I'm one. Yeah, I mean, anytime somebody tells me something, I'll say, "Oh, that's interesting. Can you point me in the direction of an article or a study about what you're saying?" And then a lot of times they just drift away and stuff. So,
is there false advertising in it, or is it glorified like alcohol? Is marijuana glorified like?
Well, it's like advertising in general. Are you creating a need or fulfilling a need? I mean, that's been a debate that's been going on for decades.
Miss Rebecca?
I think alcohol is higher on the list than marijuana. I think they glamorize drinking for every reason, for sporting events, for when it's hot out, there's a sexy chick on TV drinking a Corona with ice coming down her face, or, handsome dudes at a game. Like, they glorify alcohol, and it's the thing to do. I mean, on a Saturday night, honest to God, let's just say, for instance, Fenway Park gets out, and at the same time, so you get Fenway Park getting out of this Bruins, and then there's 3 concerts downtown. And I mean, imagine how many people are actually drunk driving.
The interesting thing too with baseball, Andy, you're the baseball guy and stuff too. Who was it? Was it Philadelphia last week that said they were extending their beer sales beyond the 7th inning because the games are going so fast now that they're not getting enough alcohol
that's
sales.
Dangerous. Don't let those people drink past a certain time, because they're insane.
Honest to God,
they're insane down there. No, and I use that term. They're different. They're special down in Philadelphia, but they are. They're special. I was just there last Saturday.
Really scary.
But I will say, when you think about, you mentioned about the sports. I mean, I was watching the NFL draft last night. I actually think we have a stupid problem more than anything else. We glorify stupid. I mean, last night, I'm literally watching the NFL draft, and I'm like, who are these people? For every team, they're like complete loony. I believe, and I could be dead wrong.
You know what I say, Andy? You know what I say? Who are these people watching the NFL draft? Why would you sit there and just watch them reading off names?
Because it's a train wreck. And the people, I'm convinced that the NFL pays these people, pay the people to be in the crowd. I'm convinced of it, because nobody. The lunacy of this NFL draft was like they stocked the pond with a bunch of weirdos. I swear to God, it was the craziest thing. I don't know, but the NFL does a really great job of promoting alcohol, and they start it early in the morning, and you go through the entire day and at night, and then you come home, and if your team doesn't win, now you're totally bummed out. You have battered women's shelters.
What's the beer of the NFL now? Is it Bud Light?
Who knows?
That big controversy about Bud Light. I was just trying to throw it in.
I don't know. I don't know, but it's so crazy. Like, the older I'm getting, the more I just can't wrap my arms around what's going on anymore.
Yeah, I mean, a can of beer is probably $18 at a
something
game.
like that. In Philadelphia, here's a great story.
Yeah, and they put it in plastic containers in case people get drunk and start winging them around.
So, wait, let me leave you with this. In Philadelphia, I went to the playoff game. I went to the Eagles playoff game. Yeah. The lacrosse team was playing. The game for the Philly did not start till 8 o'clock at night. by 3 o'clock, the parking lot was completely, you couldn't get a spot. The reason is because at 8 o'clock in the morning, the Philadelphia Wings, the lacrosse team, was playing that morning. No, they were playing at 1 o'clock or something. The gates opened at 8 a.m. So Eagle fans came up with the idea, we could pay to park for the Wings game, be set up, and we could tailgate the entire day and night because we don't have to wait for the gates to open for Lincoln Financial. We'll just start early. So they had, it was brilliant. They had 300,000 people in the parking lot. The stadium only seats 70, but they had 300,000 people. People go to the games to just party.
Right.
And whatever. So to your point, it's a mad, mad, mad world. That's all I can say. Will you come back on again?
Oh,
Yeah.
of course. If
Stay
you'll
in the
have me,
game.
of course.
Stay in the game. You'll come back on again?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Anything for my Willie.
All right. So that's our show for the week. Thank you to Mike Weber here at Michigan Troll. Rebecca Davis, the great Rebecca Davis, coming
Thank you
to
for
us
having
from
me.
Parts Unknown.
Thank you for coming on.
And
Thank you.
on last minute, it's great to have you. And Willie, where can people get more help, information about mental health if they need help?
I mean, there's the helpline at the Department of Public Health they can always call, and that's 1-800-327-5050.
Can you help people too?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Don't have a lot of open slots these days. I have a few open slots maybe for telehealth in the morning, but all my in-office is booked out.
Very busy.
Stuff.
You're kind of a rock star, right?
No,
No.
he's like famous. Yeah, he's writing
Yeah.
a book. He's famous.
I'm a legend in my own mind. Yes.
All right,
Yes,
so call,
definitely.
and the other one you could
He's
call
friends
us.
with Joe Rogan. I always say that. You're friends with Joe Rogan. That's not fair. I want to meet him.
Willie is the best, and Samsa is the other one. Did you give Samsa's number?
No, I didn't.
All right.
Google SAMHSA. It's spelled differently than the way it sounds though. It's SAMHSA. It's not SHA. It's SAMHSA.
Okay. Samsa is the
SAMHSA.
Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration.
Also, Willie, what about the one that shows the whole state and availability of beds? Isn't there?
That's the helpline that I just said.
Okay.
Yeah, the helpline. Okay. Yeah.
And that shows you if they have openings or not, right?
Yeah. They actually have a Facebook page, I believe, too, that stays current on that and stuff. So.
Yeah, that's huge right now. I have two friends right now that are alcoholics that don't know where to go for help because there's no openings. So I told her to look up that website, and I hope it works for her because it's not easy.
What's the website again?
It's not easy at all to.
It's the helpline, and so
I forget the initials of it.
Yeah, if you call the helpline, they'll be able to put you on to the website, though.
That's what I'm asking. What help?
Yeah, I was saying the helpline is 1-800-327-5050.
1-800.
That's from 327-5050.
I
That's
want
the
to make sure
helpline.
people get the information.
Yeah, out of the Department of Public Health, which is where you find the Bureau of Substance Abuse Services.
Massachusetts Substance Use Helpline, 1-800-327-5050.
Yes.
There you go. All right. That's our show for the week. We'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.